Welcome to the Andrew D'Angelo podcast.
Constant Constance. Each week, Andrew, renowned jazz saxophonist and brain cancer survivor, invites us to look at the many worlds of his guests, with conversations that cover all the arts, human resilience, a little bit of politics, and a lot of humour.
You can't fail to have a fantastic time.
Hey everybody, and welcome to today's show. Today we have, I guess, friend of mine, although we haven't seen each other, I think, in probably 25 years, right? Or something like that. But this is Dominique Eade, and she is, I have written down or found on the internet, a pure tone, flawless jazz vocalist and composer and master educator. Welcome to the show today, Dominique. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Andrew. It's so great to see you. Really, really great to be here.
You too. I remember the days in Boston. So this would have been in the early 90s.
Yeah.
You were at NEC, right?
Oh, yeah.
New England Conservatory.
Yep.
And apparently so was I. I mean, I wasn't officially enrolled, but I remember seeing you do this show. I can't remember if it was Scullers or what's the other one, the Regatta Bar?
Regatta Bar, yeah, I played those both.
Right. And I felt like you and I were sort of on parallel paths in that we were, young and wanting to do our own music. And as I said, you've made some amazing music over the years. And then eventually at some point, and as I said, my producer, Lucy Little, who is threatening to join us at some point. We'll see what happens. Right. Yeah. Right. You kind of gravitated towards education. I mean, you're teaching at New England Conservatory right now, right?
I am, but I actually started pretty early. My teacher, Geraldine Martin, who is kind of the only non-classical voice teacher at NEC that was teaching the then third stream students and the jazz students, she left her position kind of suddenly and hired me shortly after graduating. So this would be the early 80s already. So
wow. Okay.
At that point, there really was not, there were two people singing in the jazz department and a few students as vocal majors in the third stream department, which I had been a student in. But so it wasn't that time consuming for me. I still had a private studio outside of NEC where I was teaching as well. But I just was able over the years to build the vocal part of the jazz program and what is the CI, Contemporary Improvisation Department. I've just been able to build those up over these years, which has been wonderful. So it was, it was kind of concurrent with my professional performing career. I recorded for RCA while I was teaching. I moved to New York while I was teaching for NEC. And so I was able kind of to grow both my performance career and the teaching career kind of alongside each other, which was really, really wonderful.
That's amazing to have. I had Ted Reichman on the show. Oh, yeah. And just to remind everybody, Ted Reichman is also part of the Contemporary Improvisation Department at New England Conservatory. And I had two of the students. Do you know Kate Byrne or Adrienne Chabla?
Sure.
They were both on. But again, if you don't mind me just re-asking the question, what attracted you to, what was your, inspiration about being an educator? Or was it simply, I don't think it was finances, because according to your former students I spoke to, and I'll just focus on Lucy at this point, that you're just absolutely brilliant as an educator, as a teacher. A master teacher is what everybody's been agreeing on.
That is such a nice thing.
Yeah, well, you're humble too, apparently.
I didn't expect to teach, I came to NEC. I was at Vassar as an English major for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Figured out I was a musician thanks to my English teacher. And
how does that work? Like, how did your English teacher help you understand that you were a musician?
So it's a great story, actually.
Yeah.
I wrote a piece of music I was in my second year, And we loved this Miss McGrew. We loved her. We feared her. She was she taught early English, Chaucer, and she was just fabulous. And I had had her for a couple of different classes, including my freshman English class when I first arrived at Vassar. And I wrote a piece of music for Midsummer Night's Dream about Bottom, and I called it Bottom's Dream, and it was in
Cool.
E flat, and it had E flat 6 chords, and kind of sounded like
Right.
Thelonious Monk, and instrumental piece, not a vocal piece. And I was singing in a band there, also a band called Naima, which was super cool. Actually, with Joe McPhee. Do you know Joe McPhee?
I mean, of course, I've crossed paths with Joe
So he's
a little
from
bit.
Poughkeepsie,
Okay.
and he was in our band. Like, we laugh
Wow.
about it now, like playing
Wow.
like Return to Forever, and
Right. Cool.
which was awesome. So, music was always super, super close to me. I played guitar since I was 12 and wrote songs every day, instead of writing a diary. But I just didn't think of
Right.
it as a career. I just didn't think of it. It was just so almost like so close to me. I didn't really step out and go, oh, I can pursue this path. And so when I wrote this piece of music for Miss McGrew, she said, I wrote a paper too. I wasn't trying to, be a slacker too much, but she said, well, I don't read music, but let's go over to the music building. Would you play this for me? And so I did. And she said, you're such a passionate person and you're a good writer, but I always wonder where this passion is. And she said, you're a musician. And it's heavy story, I tell it now,
Yeah.
but somebody once told me
That's a big moment in a young person's life.
huge.
I mean, I remember, I don't know what age you were at that time, but I remember
Yeah.
I had a student, he was maybe 21 or 22. And, this is a private, like one-off
Yeah.
lesson I was giving somebody from Europe. And he said, where do you see yourself in a year? Right. And I was like, a year when you're 21 is different a year when you're 51.
Totally.
And I other than Corona pandemic,
Right.
whatever, I was like, I'm not that I'm stagnant, but I'm just going to keep doing what I do, man. But for a young
Yeah.
person at 21, you could get a gig at New England Conservatory. You could
Right.
get a tour in Europe. You could get a record deal with Dave Holland. I mean, you've played with Dave Holland,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
who knows what could happen
Yep.
at those stages of our lives. Yeah. And you're nurturing that now. That's what I like, is I feel like you are the person that is nurturing these huge years in people's lives. Is that fair?
I had great teachers. I really had great, including Miss McGrew. I mean, people who were very real with me and heard me. And, I'll tell you one of the things that's really interesting. I mean, that she took the time to, walk over to the music building and hear me play this piece of music.
Yeah.
But I feel like also I more and more, I have kids of my own. I have 2 sons. And when we sent our first son off to college, I realized, like, wow, in music school, you get to meet with an adult who listens to you and takes you seriously for an hour every week. And I realized that's a huge thing that doesn't exist at a lot of schools. I mean, I had that, Ms. McGrew had office hours, and I wasn't afraid to go use those and to get, good guidance from her. But there's something really special about a music school where you are heard and you're listened to. You can't, Kenya Seymour, who's this amazing singer, piano player, sings with No Name, has recorded with Chance the Rapper. She comes to NEC at age 17.
Wow.
So young. And like, I'm meeting with her every week. And I just realized, like, I mean, I have a lot of work to do, but I also realize, like, we're already ahead of the game, because if I have her best interest at heart, which is my job as an educator, she gets to meet with somebody every week who cares that much about those decisions you were just talking about. Where is she going to go? What's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know whether she's going to get this record deal or that, but I can help her orient herself and prepare herself for this road ahead. So I just consider it incredibly lucky And I love to be a part of the whole school. I mean, I think my lessons are extremely valuable. I don't downplay that, but the whole, Ted Reichman is there, and Rand Blake, and there's all kinds of people, and all the classical faculty, and all the amazing students that are there. I mean, it just creates this environment, I think, that really is a deep resource for students for their whole lives.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things where I'm since we haven't interacted in many years, I'm getting the impression that you're incredibly humble. I still want to know, what are you doing that's, and maybe you said it, and maybe this is my teaching moment, maybe you're teaching me something here, right? What are you doing that's in creating such an impact on your students? And I have, they're making this documentary about me, and the filmmaker said, I want to talk to some of your ex-students, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I hope that they don't say, And one of my students, I said, I don't think you should be a musician. I think you should do something else. And I'm still friends with her 10 years later. Yeah. And she thanks me every day. Now she's a doctor.
Wow.
I don't remember, a specialist, maybe a general practitioner or something. Yeah. But she jokingly said, yeah, you told me to stop playing clarinet. So sometimes our job as an educator, or as a guide, is to maybe steer somebody over here, right? Do you agree with that, or am I out of I mean, I don't have a professorship, so I don't know.
I think every situation is just so individual. I mean, it sounds like you went with all your
I don't remember saying it, but I won't say her name, but she remembers vividly. I in one of our lessons, I was like, yeah, I don't think you should play music. You should do something else. Yeah. And so she went to medical school.
Wow. I mean, I think, somebody's determined. I mean, people told me not ever to scat sing. Did that stop me? No.
Right. Don't you ever? Yeah, right. Don't you ever?
Don't play a void note. So I think if you're determined, and there is a bit of, there are teachers who are kind of tough love. My compatriot Mick Goodrick, my colleague who I played with, for so many years, I think he was in that category a little bit. It's not my style. I tend to be more investigating, like, let's just ask some questions about things, because I feel like, I've also never really felt that, like, you shouldn't be a musician. So I don't know what I would do if that were the case. Right. I have had students who have thrived in academics and didn't realize they would. And I've helped kind of give them the confidence to embrace that about themselves. That's definitely happened.
Dominique, when you say thrive in academics, do you mean that you saw that maybe they would be great at becoming a teacher or a professor? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean that
actually even scholars, like one of my students happened to come at the same year as somebody who was just, whatever star quality, beamed from her. And the other student was super talented, really good singer, great musician, still is. But she started to flourish in music history, scholastic, academic paper writing and so forth. And, so I thought that was wonderful. Her teachers were encouraging her, and I encouraged her as well. So I don't always know what people are going to do, but I think, and probably, if they're at a music school, the determination to try to make a go of it as a musician is pretty strong, so I've never, the other thing is you can always build, you can always improve. And if you improve as a singer, but you don't end up becoming a singer, it doesn't mean that those things that you've learned aren't applicable or enriching to your life, the rest of your life.
So in the example that people like to use, first of all, are you familiar with Heather Cox Richardson?
Of course, yeah.
Right, and she's a historian, right? Yeah. And she said at some point in her life, and I don't know what point that was, I don't remember. She's about my age. I think she's 40 something, but she just kind of owned what a nerd she was, and she loved history.
Nice.
She's teaching history, political history, and she writes these long Substack things. I think she's just absolutely brilliant.
And what a service she's doing,
Yeah.
At this time, especially.
Right. But I guess it's like owning that in a way where, sometimes when I watch her do her podcast or whatever, Heather, I love you, by the way, but she looks like she maybe just got out of the shower or whatever. She's not, she's not all frilled, dressed up and stuff like that.
Together.
Right. Well, yeah, in her way, she is.
Absolutely.
But when you were talking about Mick Goodrick, a guitarist, and his sort of more, I don't know what you would call that. Is it macho? Is that kind of a male way of approaching things? Or
I don't think it's exclusively. I mean, people call it tough love, or I don't know. There's other terms for it. Some people will say it's sort of like the Zen master killing the cat or whatever, some kind of brutal reckoning with reality. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm in touch enough with reality to killing cats.
Well, wait a minute. I love this kind of stuff, and my audience does too. What is the Zen master killing the cat? What's that analogy?
It's a famous story now. I'm going to forget, and somebody better.
I'm sure they'll correct us if you're wrong or I'm wrong.
But, I mean, some Zen master supposedly, killed a cat in front of one of them. They're not even called disciples, the monks, to kind of prove some kind of a point. I don't know about attachment, or I don't know, being a cat murderer. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, that went woo. All right.
But there are people that feel like I've just never needed to do that to reach people. That's maybe a lucky thing, I've never had to threaten anybody. I mean, I think people could be, it's all whatever frame you're in, right? So if I raise an eyebrow, that might be extreme enough for somebody, instead of threatening. I think Mick just jokingly threatened to cut people's fingers off.
What? Really? Oh my God. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I want to be clear, because I'm not sure if I'm coming across when I told this student of mine, you shouldn't be a musician. It's not like she was mad. She said it took her into a place, and she said, I just did it in this way that was really direct. And she says I wasn't mean or anything. It was just something that I noticed. I was like, I don't think you should do music. And, so I guess, in this day and age, there's a lot of talk about like sexism and homophobia and racism. And when I had Kate Byrne and Adrienne Shabla, did they ever study with you? That part we couldn't figure out. Right.
Not privately.
Right.
No.
Ted Breichman did not think they did. Neither did my producer, Lucy. And, Adrienne, as being non-binary, was very delighted how open I was to let them speak their minds. But it's what's just one of those delineations that, in me, when I studied with Mick Goodrick, when I was interact with him, I would call him macho. Now, is that bad? I don't know. But maybe I was a kid, and maybe that's just how I perceived it, right?
See, now it's interesting because I could see that, but that would be in a way a more two-dimensional way, because
I was a kid. I didn't know.
Right. So and I don't have the experience. So Mick to me was quite a mentor, and in every aspect of my both teaching and artistic pursuits, he took my ideas seriously. He talked to me about his own experiences. I formed a band with him and John Lockwood and Jamie Baum and Gary Chafee, and they all wanted to rehearse it once a week and play the original material. There was one, I remember one time where Jamie, because we're co-leading, the two women co-leading the band, which was really interesting, and doing most of the writing. And at that point, we were the two lesser experienced musicians. And so at some point there was like an ending of a song and we just couldn't figure out, well, should it be this chord or that chord? And Mick just kind of said, like, just make it something. And that was really a great moment because I realized, like, to lead, you have to be, at times, you want to be democratic and get opinions, but sometimes you have to just be decisive. But that was very gentle, you know. I mean, we rehearsed together, we played duo together. He's the first person, you know, we did some duo gig in some restaurant in Faneuil Hall, and
wow.
I finished singing the melody.
You're like throwing stuff around here, man, like Faneuil Hall and Jamie Baum. Jamie Baum.
Old days.
Yeah, who Ray, I actually did some shows with Jamie, like not
She's
too
fabulous.
long ago. She's a flautist and composer, just so people know. And who else was in that band? Let's just bring people in.
So it was Gary Chafee on drums.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Gary at all.
So Gary's written some pretty important drum rudiment things that people might know his name from. And John Lockwood on bass, who's the first bass player I met when I moved to Boston, and Mick Goodrick and Jamie Baum. So, but I was going to say, in this restaurant gig where it was just the two of us, I finished singing the melody and Mick was going to solo, and he turned to me and said, "Comp."
Whoa,
exactly. I was like, whoa.
So you're like, what are we talking here? You're like 28 at that time or 19?
Oh, no.
Like,
I'm 22, 23.
Okay,
like that.
whatever, in that area. But we know those years are big. And he's like, "Comp." And you're like, what do you do? I mean,
I'm singing guy tone lines and
cool.
humming background lines and a little bit of bass line, but it was so when you said macho, it's like to me, he was never the kind of macho, like, sit there and look pretty, little lady, and don't try to, be one of us, Well,
I didn't say it was negative. I just said it was macho.
But that could be a macho response. So he was never that way with me. But I also think that guys interact differently, and there can be other things that go on. So, and I also think, in terms of my time that I was playing with Mick, that was, I think maybe, when did you study with him?
Oh, by study, I mean, very passively.
Yeah.
As I was kind of going to New England Conservatory, but not really, because I wasn't enrolled, but I was just kind of grabbing classes here and there. And I was in George Russell's big band somehow.
So early days.
Yeah. I guess early 90s. I would go and take a lesson with Joe Maneri, the saxophone, reedist.
I love Joe.
Joe was amazing.
Did you study with Joe Allard?
I did not.
Oh.
I did get to spend time with Ram Blake just a little bit.
Yep, I kind of remember that.
And I know that you've done a lot of work with Bran.
Yes.
And so by study, maybe that's not fair. And since this is kind of a permanent conversation, I should take that back. Just passively, study with George Garzone. Okay, so I took 3 lessons, maybe 10.
That's great.
Right?
Sure.
And it is what it is. It's I some of my students come and they spend a day with me, and that's the one lesson they have with me in their life, and that's just how I roll. But more than even about me, I was just curious, and I feel like we're starting to get a better picture of your own brilliance as far as being a master educator and teacher. And I'm sure somebody's going to be able to see you, putting me in a place that I need to understand my position, that I have approached some musician friends of mine who are fairly well known, if not famous. And they're like, I don't feel like coming on. I don't want to talk about music. I want to play music. But I actually really enjoy this. I enjoy this as much as I enjoy a gig.
Yeah,
I enjoy conversations are amazing. Yeah. They have gone from anywhere from being just completely unacceptable to just really light and funny. And, after watching you, as I said, at what we decided was at the Regatta Bar in those days. And one thing that I wanted to ask you was, do you know Reed Anderson, the bass player from the Bad Plus?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we were talking about something that drives us bonkers is when I don't know, somebody plays a melody and then just leaves the music, right? So they go and they stand to the side and somebody takes a solo, somebody else takes a solo. Like it's like the music, the melody disappears and they're playing chord changes or they're playing the form. Nothing wrong with that. But I like this thought of Mick telling you comp, like stay in the music. I'm not sure if that's what he was thinking, but it's unusual for us because what, right? We play
definitely. And I think, I also think like a lot of guitar players, they don't really like soloing without somebody else doing something. And there was no bass player or anybody else on the gig. So he was like, well, this is your part of your job description now, which was great.
It's amazing. But do you think it was specific to you, Dominique? Or do you think Mick was, I mean, in other words, my gist of Mick with my brief, passing by him in my life is that he understands a person. He doesn't try to lob his philosophy or his ideology on everybody. Like he might be able to see certain things. Like when I told my student, I don't think you should be a musician. I don't think you're going to like it. That was specific to her. And she says I did it nicely, but I would never say that to like all my students. So you shouldn't be you can be a musician. You shouldn't be a musician. And so I also had Alan Mednaughtarn. Do you know him, the drummer?
I know who he is. Yeah.
And one thing Alan loves about me is I refuse to let him just play a drum solo. I always comp for him. No matter whether I'm playing the melody or just some guide tones, whatever, or some rhythmical thing, and kind of interacting with him. And I was like, "Is that bother you?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "I hate when everybody just drops out, and then I got to play this drums." Yeah, right. So Dominique, I wanted to read this quote, which I believe is a quote of yours.
Okay.
At this time of year, from social media, I think all of the amazing New England Conservatory students, sorry, reading out loud. I feel like I'm in junior high or something. Students who are graduating and imagine what they will be up to in the years to come. Yeah. And then you have like Sarah Serpa was one of your students. Michael Mayo was one of your students. Yeah. And we're talking about like Grammy Award winning people. Yeah. Like first of all, I'm saying like a lot, which I'm sure as a teacher, like stop saying like, but what is it? How is it to be that person who's nurturing these Grammy, I mean, these are amazing. I know a lot of your students are amazing, but these are the ones that I'm familiar with. I don't know them personally. What is it like to be that, that you're their mentor, or what are you? I mean, what do you call yourself? What do you want to tell them? Because if they watch this, then.
I mean, I don't know, I'll never know what I am exactly to them. And that's not that's not even really the point. But I mean, first of all, I definitely feel each student so individually. And I mean, people I'm sure could feel like, oh, well, she must like this student better than that student. I honestly don't feel that. Like, I feel like my gig when I'm with a student is to see who they are and help them get to where they might want to go, And so I have, I mean, Luciana Souza and Roberta Gambarini and Sophia Ray and, Aoife O'Donovan and Sarah DeRose. I mean, it's like, if I list them all off the top of my head, I'll forget somebody. Aubrey Johnson, who's doing such wonderful things in New York now.
So there's that one student in the corner going, she didn't mention my name.
I know. I just because, I mean, it's a long list of people, right? But I'm equally excited for each one of them, and I don't know why that's true, but that's an honest feeling. I wouldn't say it if I didn't really feel that. Michael Mayo has a record coming out tomorrow. On Mac Jazz. It's fabulous, but I'm as excited for, my student doing research at Duke University as I am for him. Right. It's just how I feel like. So, and once it's kind of like playing music, right? Like you have all these people that you feel really close to and that you've communed with in some way. And I think when you teach people, there's a I don't know, Steve Lacy said something kind of amazing. You know, he was on the NEC faculty shortly before he died for a couple of years, and it wasn't transmigration of souls, but it was something kind of deep that he talked about that he felt really lucky to have had at that point in his life. And it's a shared thing that doesn't really, it's not about the student and it's not about the teacher. It's about the thing that happens because of both of you.
And can you consider yourself a guide? Is that fair? I mean,
sure, sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm a teacher, a guide, a shoulder to cry on, a person to share ideas with.
Right.
You know, all of those things.
Can I just tell you a quick story? Sorry for interrupting, but it just came to me. My friend, our friend Chris Speed. Do you remember him? The tenor saxophone and clarinet. We had this amazing teacher when we were teenagers. We're talking like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, on the West Coast, right?
Correct, in Seattle. And Chris would show up to his lesson, and our teacher would not come. He wouldn't let Chris in the house. If he was home, he would make Chris sit out on the porch and think for an hour. And Chris would always, tell me afterwards, Mr. Davenport didn't let me in the house again. I had to sit on the porch for an hour until my mom picked me up. But to me, that's brilliant, because maybe Chris Speed needed some time alone just to sit on the porch and think about life. Right. Sure. Is that fair? Yeah. And for me,
I mean, could be. I wouldn't know, because I wasn't that teacher with that person. I'm
just trying to make it maybe a metaphor, an analogy where when you're, conjuring or like I said, nurturing a garden, you can't really control how a tomato plant grows, right? Or whatever the analogy we want to use, right? Whatever your student's doing. But are you, Dominique, do you have this, oh, wow, so-and-so is Grammy material or whatever it is, or so-and-so is going to be a great musical historian? Or are you just kind of, I don't know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'm very, very curious how that works.
So I'm never thinking about like, what's the student going to turn into, because that you just can't know.
You can't control that, right?
No. So, what I think, that I think NEC does really well is that it gives people enough exposure to different kinds of things. For instance, Sarah Serpa, she studied with me when she was still at Berkeley. And I wouldn't necessarily do this to every student, but, she kept coming over to NEC to take some lessons. And I said, she was graduating from her undergrad program. And I said, I think you'd really do well at NEC. I think you'd really flourish here.
Right.
Because I could see that could be a great path for her. And
so let me hold your thought there. When you say you could see, right, that she would really flourish there. What are we seeing here? Like, this is the rub for me, because I have these intuitive moments as well.
Yeah.
Right?
It's intuitive. It's not like I'm looking into the unknown. I know the environment of NEC very well. And so I know what things would be available to her. Mm-hmm. And I also know Berkeley well, and what you might be exposed to there, and what kind of skills you would build in that situation. So I just thought she had a very broad artistic sensibility that I felt would be greatly nourished by being at NEC. And she was in my jazz vocal traditions class, where I teach the whole history of jazz singing, which is kind of a mitzvah for me, because I really feel like it's sorely neglected. And people can get out of music school and go like, I don't know who a jazz drummer could not know who Dinah Washington is, right? If they probably know Sarah Vaughan and Ella and Billie Holiday and maybe Nina Simone. Now people will know Nina Simone. That didn't used to be true. Anyway, she heard Rand Blake in that class for the first time. She heard the Rand Blake Jean Lee record. And I just remember, actually, she and her now husband, Andre, were in the class together. And I just remember the expression on her face when that information reached her ears. And of course, she's done some wonderful work with Rand. So a lot of it is exposure and the environment, which I'm a part of. And I mean, I've also had some successful students that I teach privately who aren't at NEC, but I think the whole NEC environment gives people, exposes them to all different kinds of things of a kind of level of musicianship across the board in all these genres. And there's a rigor there that helps people keep going out into their artistic field and recreating themselves. So now I've been at it for a long time. I'm going to turn 63 in a couple of weeks.
Really?
I've been
Wow, you
teaching
look amazing.
since,
Wow.
You know,
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
80s. I've seen people go, thank you. I've seen people go through all kinds of reinventions of what they do, rather than getting out of music school and saying, I have this skill set and this is what I do.
Right.
You know, people keep reinventing themselves and have a long trajectory.
I can tell you,
Yeah.
I can tell you, sorry,
No,
Dominique, that I am so proud that a student I had 10 years ago, and I apparently said, don't be a musician, and now they're a full-blown doctor. I'm actually proud of that.
Of course.
I think that's a cool thing. And she thanks me profusely. She goes, I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't, you know, for you saying that. And I was like, really? Oh, I'm sorry. She goes, don't be sorry. And I was like, well, you know, maybe you weren't the greatest clarinet player. I don't know.
But that's the thing, is that I think you start, you know, for me, what happens is that I get more experience and then I understand the weight of what I say and what it carries. You know, I don't know that I understood that as a younger teacher.
Oh, interesting. Right. The impact that you might have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the other thing is that I'm continually a student myself, and I'm a student of voice and of vocal technique. I've worked with some of the premier cutting edge vocal technicians in search of understanding the instrument better. So I've continually studied myself, and I continually, study improvisation and harmony, and so that's always ongoing for me. So in a way, I kind of feel like I'm just running along with my students, like, yeah, isn't this cool? And like, there's so much to discover. And that's why I don't think I'm going to go like, well, that person is Grammy material and this person will like, it's not a finishing school. It's like, we're never finished. We never master anything. We discover, and it's so inspiring, on and on and on.
Yes,
right?
Agreed. And wait, hold on. You're fucking 63?
Almost.
What the hell? You look amazing, Dominique. And I as a staunchly, gay man, one of the things I remember about watching you do shows back in Boston in the 90s was just your utter beauty and your physical presence on stage and everything. I hope that's not uncomfortable for you.
No.
And I can't believe, I actually, it's amazing that you've been around for 63 years. It's my friend's nephew.
I've done a lot. Yeah. And teaching a long time. And teaching a lot, because I started teaching so young. I've been teaching many decades now. Into my fourth decade at NEC.
Wow.
So close.
Yeah, my friend, his nephew died, and they just had the funeral on Saturday. Yeah, it's sad. He was 21. Yeah. Not my friend, but his nephew.
His nephew, yeah.
And sometimes life just doesn't feel fair that way. It's very strange to me. And my friend was pretty upset, and we talked yesterday, and he was crying. Oh, yeah. And, anyway, I don't know what the weather was like in Boston, but it's been pretty rainy and cold here. But, it's just so strange how that works. And then here you are at 62, 63, whatever, looking glorious. You have a flourishing, academic career with all your students. And I haven't heard you sing in a while, other than what I saw on the internet, which was amazing. But I don't know how to put it. Like you said, you're going into your fourth decade. You have kids, and we don't have to talk about your children, but how does it feel? Do you feel different than you were when you're 25, or could you go back to your 25-year-old self and give some advice? Or if you remember me at 25, like what would you say to Andrew at 25? You don't have to answer that question. It's just something I wrote down because like, I wonder if Dominique is this genius teacher, which it's very obvious you are. Like, what would you say to yourself, 24, 25? I don't really care the age, 21, 26. What would you say? Am I lobbing a tough question at you?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I was very lucky when I came to Boston. I mean, like I said, I took a leave of absence from Vassar and I went to Berkeley. Actually, I did a summer session there and I thought, oh, well, this is cool. I'm like getting my reading and writing skills a little more together. And
right.
And I took a leave of absence, and at the end of my second semester at Berkeley, I heard Rand Blake play. And that was, again, like a moment of truth moment. It was just like, that's it. It's like, that's the logical next step in the language of, music that I'm interested in. And so it was great to work with him. I was also, in addition to working with Mick Goodrick, I worked with Alan Dawson, whose picture I just found from our recording session.
Oh,
actually.
nice.
Put up for everybody.
Hey, Alan, what's up, man?
Another person.
Wow.
So he was a mentor. He, when I like what I would say to my whatever 20-something self, I mean, I knew his music, from recordings with Jackie Byard and Russ on Roland Kirk. But there was a certain kind of chutzpah, really bravado, where I felt like, of course, Alan Dawson wants to play with me. But I mean, it's equally as possible that he would really just go like, nah,
I'll pass, or whatever, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Or just kind of, dial it in. But he was so supportive and so, there he was playing my original compositions. And, so I just feel like I was so lucky to play with those people. And it continued. I mean, I worked with, amazing people. I mean, I studied with Dave Holland and with the late Stanley Cowell, and recorded with Stanley Cowell. And I know I cherished those moments. I hope I cherished them enough, and maybe that's one thing that I would look back to.
You might knock on yourself at 25 or 23 or whatever and say, "Hey, remember to enjoy this because it's a really cool moment." Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Is that fair, or
is it? Yeah, like this. It doesn't. I mean, when you play music with people and you take that leap of faith and you jump over the boundaries of age and of race and of gender and all these things, and you just are there with people, that you can't take that away. And I know I felt that. And, that's when I think about those great players that are gone that I had the chance to play with. I know I cherished it, but you can be in a hurry, to get someplace. And I think two things. I think I would be less in a hurry, and I would be I possibly want to, and maybe this is part of what I do as a teacher or try to do for people, but I would want to nurture every artistic aspect of what I was interested in doing.
I can see all your students are like, what is she going to say to her 25-year-old self? What is she going to say to her 25-year-old self? But I know that for me,
yeah.
I mean, the first time I toured Europe, I was 18. I got lucky.
Gosh.
I had a great moment.
Who were you touring with?
Oh, it was this all-star big band from the US, blah, blah, blah,
Nice.
called Jazz Abroad.
Yeah.
But the fuck if I enjoyed it. All I could think about was, how can I get back to Europe and go on tour again and make money? Like that's where my head was at. I'm not putting that on anybody else, but I was like, this is amazing. This is fun. They paid for our flights and we had nice hotels. I'm a kid, we're doing these amazing gigs. There's thousands of people there. And I was like, okay, how do I do this again? That's all I could think about was like, I want to do that again. Wait, like, dude, enjoy the moment. Right.
Exactly.
Is that
we're
fair?
Impatient and
Right.
also, because when I came to Boston, I just was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but if I really screw up in this city, I'll just go to some other city and try again.
Right.
Like I had a kind of determination, which I don't know where exactly that came from.
Probably from your dad, maybe? Like, wasn't he in the military or something? Right?
He was, but I mean, it was to pursue something artistic was maybe more from my mother's side, I'd say.
Your mom, who I believe is Swiss, right?
She was Swiss and she was a great amateur pianist, but she didn't have that kind of determination. I mean,
Interesting.
She had a different path. She married an American military man and had 5 kids and,
right.
took right out, they met during World War II. And so maybe it's a combination. You're right. Like maybe it's the artistic part for my mom, and
I'm just talking about the discipline.
Yeah,
like
there's discipline and determination. That I think you're right.
There's a certain amount. I didn't know your parents. I'm sorry if I touch on something that's sensitive, but I know that my mom was a very disciplined person. So I would just practice. She said, you're going to practice from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. You're not watching the TV, right? I mean, it wasn't like she didn't really give a fuck what I practiced, right? But she goes, you're going to be in your room playing music for 2 hours or whatever it was, 1 hour, 2 hours,
what did
whatever.
She do?
She literally did that. She goes, you go in your room, you lock the door.
No, but I mean, did she have a career also? Or?
Oh no, my mom didn't do jack shit.
So she made you do it all.
My mom was lucky enough to be a stay-at-home mom. And I always give her grief, when she says, you need to get a real job and stop being a musician. I said, what job did you ever have? She goes, well, I raised you kids. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, she's 80 now, right? But I literally was talking to her the other day and giving her grief because she had a job when she was in college. So that would have been 1951, 52, something like this.
Yeah.
We're unsure. We do the math, but it's in the early 50s. And that's the last job my mom had. I think it's impressive. I'm like, Mom, you're like 80. You haven't had a job since the early 50s. I want to be that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So what did she do for me? She would literally say, go in your room, lock the door. You can't watch the TV and you make music, whether you listen to it.
Did you pick your instrument?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked about this on the show, but I'll do it quickly for you and anybody, any of your students or whoever are listening. My parents literally, in old days, newspaper, print, and said, here's an ad for this place called Canela Keys. And they said, you have to play music because it's good for you. Right? This is like the 70s, right? Like it's good for you.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like that one. And I picked out the alto saxophone. They're like, all right. So we went down, we rented a saxophone. And it was just literally because I thought it looked cool.
Amazing. Amazing.
I mean,
my husband who plays alto, he wanted to play the bass. And I think his dad said it's too big or something. So.
What your husband is Alan Chase. People should know that.
Alan Chase, yeah.
An amazing
So he's been
saxophonist.
playing alto since 4th grade. But I think he would have chosen the bass.
It's so weird because I had Charlotte Greve on. Do you know her? The German alto saxophonist.
Oh yeah. She's great.
Charlotte Greve and Janae Greenfield. And I think I asked Mary Halverson, but I'm not sure. And maybe one or two other people. It's just annoying because every interview I do is like, why did you start on the saxophone? So I feel like it's all over. Yeah. But at the same time, Charlotte Greve also said, yeah, I just thought the thing looked cool. And I wanted to play it, she's a kid. She's like just about 30 now or whatever. But, she's in Germany. She lives in a small town. They're like, do you want to play an instrument? She's like, yeah, I like that one. That one looks cool. Right. And that was the same for me. It's not as profound as people want to believe. Right. Like we woke up from
who knows why that is speaking to you, like what the affinity is, looking cool. I mean, it might not look cool to somebody else. Why would it look cool to you?
Well, right. And my mom, even though she has pretty serious dementia at this point, so she said she came down the day after they rented me the saxophone, and she said I was sleeping with it in my bed, like I was holding it. And she's like, "Uh-oh, what did we do?" Right? But she swears to this day, even with her dementia, she goes, "I remember coming down, we got you that saxophone and you would sleep with it like it was your girlfriend or something." I mean, whatever, I was 8 or 10.
Oh,
it's cute, right?
Adorable.
We're going to finish up today with a couple things. First of all, Alan Chase is your husband, who's also a saxophonist. How is Alan doing? How's your husband?
He's doing great. He has been the chair of the ear training department at Berkeley for quite a few years, and he's just about to step down. Actually, he was going to go back just to faculty for this year, but he decided to wait because it was such a tumultuous year. And like all of us, I mean, actually, Berkeley was in the fall all online and mostly online in the spring, and definitely the administrative positions were all online. So he's been working from home. I've been doing hybrid teaching going into NEC since the fall to teach whatever students want to be on campus getting tested every week. And that all, knock wood, has worked out pretty well. So we got through.
Sorry, you dropped out a little bit, but a quick vamp on that. I've had 2 people on the show, this young trumpet player from Norway named Simon Halvorsen, and then this drummer from Germany, Joe Smith. And, what is it? We're in June of 2021 and they still don't have the vaccine. I mean, so it's just very strange, that the world, like being in New York and probably in Boston, I would assume, like, I've been vaccinated for months, right? And over there, they're like, and I just got a message from a friend of mine in Spain, and like, I finally can get vaccinated next month. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But she's been
vaccinated a while.
What's that?
I was saying my sister is in Italy, but she's been vaccinated a while. I'm surprised about Norway.
I would have thought that it would have been dialed in. It's Norway. It's forgive me,
totally.
my Norwegian friends, but I was telling Seaman, I was like, I thought you people were all uptight. I figured you'd be like in line, like next, but no, it hasn't happened like that. So anyway, strange. It's very strange. We had a strange year. I'm here with Dominique. It's June of 2021. Dominique, one thing I enjoy talking to my guests about is, either, sexism or racism or homophobia, depending on the proclivities. And you had mentioned during our break that you had some words that you wanted to share regarding sexism in either in education or in the music business in general, or whatever it is that you want to talk. I think it's important that we talk about this stuff myself.
I do too. And all of those topics, are super important. One of the things that I've always thought, like, this is just like a tiny sidebar to the homophobia in jazz, but like, I've always thought that it's interesting. People don't do it so much anymore, thank goodness, but to kind of, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but to kind of break the tension for cisgendered men, they pretend that they're gay. Is this the thing? You ever seen this?
Yeah, of course.
Like the intimacy goes down and then they start talking with a lisp, and it's just like, this is, or it's a way of, it can even be if a woman's present, then it's kind of a way of diffusing sexual tension in that way. It's bizarre. So jazz has a lot of really weird artifacts, I think, in that way. And jazz education.
Let's Dominique, you're kind of blipping in and out.
And I mean, I don't know.
You're kind of bleeping in and out there with the internet connection. Can you just say what you said again?
Too.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't think it's on my end.
I was going to say that. Well, I'm here. I'm having you. You're freezing a little bit too. So maybe the internet is just weird, or I don't know. But I was going to say that I think. I was thinking that we were going to talk about this, and somewhere in my, in some magazine box somewhere, I have the Time magazine with the cover when the ERA failed from the 70s, the Equal Rights Amendment. And it's, and the graphic is, I haven't thought about this or looked at it in years, but I woke up thinking about it. It's a female silhouette walking down some stairs with her head hung down. And it still hasn't passed. So I know that we're not, we're in a sexist society anyway, still. But somehow in jazz education, and maybe in education in general, but certainly in jazz education, it seems to have persisted in ways that I wouldn't have expected.
How so?
Well, I think businesses had to try to stamp it out for legal protection, but somehow it could kind of creep into the crevices of academia, going somewhat unnoticed because it was less in the turbulence and the rapids of kind of the day-to-day workaday world, like the business world is. I'm not saying there isn't sexism in the workaday world of business as well. Of course there is, but companies don't want to get slapped with a lawsuit, so they're going to have sensitivity training and so forth and so on. And I feel like jazz education, I think, I was just hearing people say things and seeing behavior that I knew would not fly in the business world. And here it was, in an institution, in institutions that I respected, and coming from people who were, purporting to play a music that I think is like a,
Hey, Dominique, can I just interrupt there?
Yeah.
When you said behaviors that would not fly in the business world, right? That's what you said, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? Like, what's a behavior? Like slapping somebody on the butt? Or, I mean, what are we talking about here?
Oh, yeah. Or comment, making some kind of sexual comment, a teacher to a student. I mean, when I went from Vassar, which was, had gone co-ed, and strangely enough, the women were called co-ed at that point, which was stupid. But it was
it is stupid.
Really stupid. But it was still largely female student body, women's student body. And when I went to Berkeley, it was, I was often one of the only women in my classes. And it was just like this, complete shock. But yeah, teachers would say things that were inappropriate. I mean, I adjudicated the Wichita Jazz Festival, and I adjudicated big bands. I mean, when was this? Like sometime in the mid 80s. The winning band, which at that time was from North Texas, took the band out to a strip club as their reward.
Are you serious? Oh my God. It's like, wait, what?
literally when they're on the bus.
By strip club, you mean female stripping, not a male, because as a gay man, I have been to male strip clubs.
You're right.
So it's not like,
right. Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. All right. So they think it's a good idea to take these students to a female strip club. Oh my God. I'm only laughing because it's redonkulous. It's crazy.
It's and on the bus, like they're discussing and they're dropping me off. Do I want to go? No, thank you. And there's, literally somebody's turning to me and saying, why don't you think there's more women in jazz education? I was just like, so I think, or just, people saying things or people making, comments. And so, and actually, I mean, at Berkeley, somebody went undercover. I think this has happened twice, but like maybe in the 80s, a female student went undercover and just started reporting to the Globe, like what was going on.
I actually remember that. I believe you're right. That might be a cool thing for me to research, and make a part of this interview, I can put a link to maybe an article or something.
Be interesting to know what became of her.
Right.
So anyway, things have just kind of hung on. Sometimes it hangs on around singers because singers are often women, although obviously not exclusively. So I found, like, one of the things that's been really important for me, and I wrote an article actually for Downbeat about this, was just like around this thing of singing and what the expectation of singers is. And, some people will say, oh, like we were saying, singers sing, but this is in education. Like, it's one thing if you want to be on stage and sing a song and walk away, that's your prerogative. It's what you want to do. But like, you can't be a teacher and say, well, just come to our ensemble and sing your song and then leave. Right. But that could happen. So I found it very effective. And I did this article for Downbeat to write from a strategic point of view, like, how can we educate everybody better? So the article just discusses strategies of integrating singing creatively into ensembles. And I would think that wouldn't have to be done. Like, I would think, in this day and age with people like Sarah Serpa and Michael Mayo and so forth, that this would just be a no-brainer. But education sometimes lags. Education, which really should be at the forefront of ideas and the avant-garde and the cutting edge, can often be more conservative.
Or like you said, lags and is a bit behind education. But then at one point you were also talking about that this music that we create, you and I and many other people, is supposedly, if not rebellious or radical, at least it's supposed to be forward thinking. Exactly. And so it's so strange. Like, how come I can't bring my boyfriend to a show and make out with him at the show during the set break without getting some shit? Although I have to admit, people have been pretty, open, but I was nervous. Like, I'm like, can I hold my boyfriend's hand in this club? Right. Can I kiss him? Can we, be affectionate in front of these people at this jazz gig? It's just weird because this music is based on, let's fix the shit, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a problem. It's really a problem. But I mean, I think it's great, that you take those steps and break those barriers however you can. And I think that's a really, really important part of education, speaking now in Pride Month, super, super, super important. And NEC is kind of getting with the program, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, which is really great to see.
And let's note that I've cussed about 1,000 times and Dominique has never cussed once during this conversation.
Not because I don't.
She's
But you keep calling me professors, and masterful teachers. So
by the way, that's a indirect message that I'm giving you, that when I was researching for this interview, that I said your mostly your former students, I don't actually know anybody who's studying with you right now, we're just saying, yeah, she's a master. She's amazing. I have more, adjectives I can put out there, but that's not me. I don't know if you're a master teacher. Right. How would I know?
I don't know either.
Right.
Proof is in the pudding, and the pudding's never done.
Right. So, Dominique, in conclusion, is there anything you want to put out there? Like say something to people coming up, making music or whatever.
I'm just so glad you're doing it. We need you. We need your voices, all of them. And, it can feel tough at times. Keep your inspirations near you. If you're a woman, put some pictures of women working and getting the job done. And, people expect you to, I say, spring scantily clad and fully formed from the head of Zeus. You never do. You just keep working. And that's the best thing you can do.
Beautiful. And let's just reiterate the fact that Dominique and I did not schedule our outfits, but somehow We absolutely nailed it. Thank you, Dominique.
Such a pleasure, Andrew.
It's such a pleasure, and have a beautiful evening.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you hopefully again soon. Who knows?
I would love it. Be well, everybody. Take care.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Constant Constance. Tune in every week for new conversations. And if you want even more, check out Andrew's Patreon for more exclusive content and additional conversations. Hosted and produced by Andrew D'Angelo. Edited and mixed by Lucy Little. Original music by Andrew D'Angelo and Maximilian Moore D'Angelo. Intro is Henrietta Weeks. Thanks so much. See you next time.
You fucking rocked it. Like
You killed it.
she doesn't know she says podcast, right? Like she doesn't even